It's no secret why people love the game of boxing. More than any other sport, there is a chance of an unexpected and breathtaking ending. In today's video, we're talking about the hardest punchers in the boxing history. Deontay Wilder. One important aspect of Deontay Wilder's punching power is his size. The Bronze Bomber, as he is known, is 6'7" tall, but he is comparatively slender, generally fighting in the 220s category. However, his punching power is substantial. His dreadful one-punch knockout of Dominic Breazeale last May left no doubt about his skill to put off the lights at any instant. Malik Scott, who lasted only 96 seconds in opposition to Wilder, said that unexpected speed is a vital element in Wilder's strength. Scott said, "He gets there fast. You got different kind of power. You got George Foreman kind of power." Retired heavyweight Richard Towers presumably has bashed with many top heavyweights including Anthony Joshua, the Klitschko's, Tyson Fury and Wilder. Yet he feels that Deontay Wilder is in a league of his own. His notable knockout wins are against Chris Arreola, Dominic Breazeale, Louis Ortiz, Malik Scott, and Bermane Stiverne. Ernie Shavers. One thing that stands out about Shavers' outstanding power is the count of initial knockouts on his record. 51 of his 68 suspensions came within 3 rounds, and not all of his opponents were weaklings. He was a long-time competitor who fought against ranked fighters frequently, beginning in the mid-1970s. Journeyman Leroy Caldwell was asked during a Mayweather Promotions video as to who punched the hardest. Shavers said Caldwell, who survived less than 2 rounds against him. And did he know he was in trouble in that fight only when they were taking his gloves off? Shavers had never won the title, but people are still talking about his punching strength. Legendary trainer Angelo Dundee once said Ernie wasn't really a good boxer, but God, his power was amazing. Ernie Shavers' notable knockout wins are against Joe Bugner, Ken Norton, Jimmy Ellis, and Jimmy Young. George Foreman. A generation of boxing lovers beheld the chiseled Olympic champion strike his way through the division from 1969 to 1977. The next generation watched as ecstatic as the lively, pudgy, but still extremely strong ex-champion picked up where he left off a decade earlier. Many people were scared for Muhammad Ali before his meeting with Foreman in 1974. Foreman, with a record of 40-0, 37 knockouts at that time, had knocked down 11 of his previous 12 opponents within 2 rounds, including Joe Frazier, to win the title and Ken Norton. At last, Ali used rope-a-dope to bring Foreman down and knock him out. Few of them were so lucky. Foreman retired in 1977 but reappeared a decade later and continued his reign of terror. He lost in a few attempts to retain a title before winning a fight with the belt holder Michael Moorer in 1994. Moorer was up front on all cards when a right from Foreman split his gloves and put him down for the count. Thus, Foreman at 45 became the oldest to win a heavyweight title. That is some real power. His notable knockout works were against George Chuvalo, Jerry Cooney, Ron Lyle, Michael Moorer, Ken Norton, Chuck Wepner, and twice against Joe Frazier. Rocky Marciano. Marciano's major strength might have been his immense stamina, size of hard punches, and resilience, but make no mistake, the man could crack. If you watch a video of his one-punch desolation of Hall of Famer Jersey Joe Walcott in September 23, 1952, you can see that it is arguably the greatest single shot in history. Walcott, who also fought against Louis, was asked whose punch was harder. He replied that Marciano was the one-punch artist. He blew every punch like he threw a baseball, as hard as he could. Marciano was minor by today's standards. He usually fought between 184 and 189 pounds. Thus, you have to look at Marciano's place here as a kind of pound-for-pound position, while admitting that it might not be a good idea to count Rocky out of any fight in the era. His competitor Carmen Basilio, who passed away in 2012, said Marciano would have done just fine even in this era. Marciano's notable knockout wins were against Ezzard Charles, Roland Lastaza, Joe Louis, Archie Moore, and twice against Jersey Joe Walcott. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is a name which needs no introduction. No heavyweight in history made a bigger impact with his punching power than Mike Tyson in the 1980s. Of course, one reason is that his lightning attack through the division was accessible to everyone on TV. Thus, he conquered the attention of even casual fans around the world. To be precise, it wasn't his firm technique or even unusual haste that attracted attention. It was his capability to seed opponents unconscious at any moment of the fight, and it was a thing that you were in your seat at the opening bell and didn't blink, as Tyson had a phenomenal 22 first-round knockouts. Teddy Atlas, who trained Tyson in his teenage years, had revealed what made Iron Mike so powerful. he had an amalgamation of quickness, speed, and power, which is unusual. As far as punching prowess, he is like Mickey Mantle in baseball. Players like Ernie Shavers is a great puncher, but all on the right side, whereas Tyson is on either side of the plate. Tyson was a true sensation. Tyson's prominent knockout wins were against Tyrell, Biggs, Trevor Berbick, Larry Holmes, Donovan Ruddock, Michael Spinks, Pinklon Thomas, Tony Tubbs, Carl Williams, and twice against Frank Bruno. Joe Frazier. One knockdown that stays among the most remarkable of all time was the Frazier left hook that landed on the jaw of Muhammad Ali in the 15th round of his first fight. In that moment, Frazier secured his eminence as having one of the most noxious punches in boxing history. Retired boxer Stan Ward, who competed against both Frazier and George Foreman, was asked which of the two punches was harder. Without any hesitation, he said Frazier. Smoking Joe wasn't a mere puncher. He was a quick, athletic, bobbing, weaving, whirling dervish of a fighter who made life difficult for anyone he fought with. And he wasn't a big man. He was 5'11.5" and not much more than 200 pounds at his best. Still, his punches, especially that left hook, could make your head spin around multiple times. However, those with whom he messed understood the effect of his punches and the fire he brought into the ring every time out. Joe Frazier's notable knockout wins were against George Chivallo, Bob Foster, Doug Jones, Eddie Mason, Buster Mattis, and twice against Jimmy Ellis and Jerry Quarry. Sonny Liston. Liston is one of the most underappreciated boxers in history, in part because of the gentle manner in which he lost back-to-back fights to a young Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay at that time. Without a doubt, he was the George Foreman or Mike Tyson of his generation. He was horrifying. He was 6'1" and around 220 pounds, but he was thick and strong. His legendary thrust had the impact of some fighters' power punches. Cus D'Amato and Floyd Patterson's manager didn't desire his fighters to compete for the title against Liston because of his power punches. He knew what would happen, and it did happen. Liston knocked off Patterson in the first round to win the championship and then did it again. At that point of time, he had the same vibe that Foreman and Tyson would have later, that of someone who appeared unconquerable. Of course, the presumption was quickly disproved. Ali made sure of that. However, today we can look back on Liston's career in its entirety. Before Ali, Liston was as vicious as all but a few heavyweights in history, an intimidating, brooding figure who improved the procedure of seek and knockdown. Foreman, who competed with Liston, said, "He was the only man I ever faced who could force me backwards." Liston's notable knockout wins were against Zora Foley, Nino Valdez, Chuck Wepner, and twice against Cleveland Williams and Floyd Patterson. Vladimir Klitschko. Klitschko is the most masterly boxing champion of a period that extended from 2000 to 2015, during most of which he held at least one major title. His style wasn't complex. He made use of his height of 6'6", as well as good footwork to keep his opponents at a safe distance. From there, he would fight behind an excellent jerking jab to set up, you guessed it, one of the biggest right hands ever. And never to forget that Stewart saw all the great ones over a half-century or so. Phil Jackson was knocked out by a young Klitschko and later sparred with him. He also was knocked out by Lennox Lewis. Klitschko punched harder than Lewis. Klitschko had more power, most definitely. His notable knockout wins were against Chris Bird, Ruslan Shagaev, Ray Mercer, Sam Peter, Kubrat Pulev, and Hasim Rahman. So guys, that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed the hardest punchers in boxing history.